Good evening. Thanks for joining us as we have this wonderful conversation about exploring Hispanic Serving Institutions from College Guidance Network. And I will introduce our guests in a second, but first I want to begin with some kind of contextual information and on this important topic. So from 2010 to 2020, the U.S. Hispanic population grew 23%. And Hispanics account for 19% overall of the U.S. population. And the number of HSIs, Hispanic Serving Institutions, has nearly doubled in the last 10 years. Now they account for around 600 2- and 4-year colleges and universities. So within that context, we're going to have a really engaging conversation this evening about HSIs, and here to join us in that conversation are Falone Serna, who is the Dean of Undergraduate Admission and Outreach at California Lutheran University. Welcome, Falone.
Hello, great to be here.
And with us as well is Francisco Estrada, who is the Dean of College Prep at Uplift Preparatory. Thanks for being here.
Hey, everybody.
So we're going to be using the Q&A function on your Zoom display, so feel free to enter your questions in there. And we're also going to be using the chat. And we would like for folks to go into the chat and share where you're zooming in from, and if you're a student or a parent or a counselor, and just kind of how you show up to this experience. I want to share with the group a couple more statistics, but before we do that, while you're entering into the chat, I want to ask both our guests to do kind of just a brief introduction of their professional journeys, like how you each got to where you are today. And maybe Francisco, we can start with you, and you can just give us kind of a brief background.
Sure, thank you. Just want to say that what a awesome welcome, and that intro was really cool. So hey everybody, my name is Francisco Estrada. I'm the Dean of College Prep at Uplift Luna. It's located in Dallas, Texas, in the heart of downtown Dallas, Deep Ellum, the home of the blues. So really happy to serve that community. I was born in Juarez, Mexico, raised in El Paso. So I'm really proud of that upbringing. Have a lot of pride in that border, identity that I had. I attended HSIs. I went to UTEP. I graduated from University of North Texas for my undergrad. I got my master's at Harvard and currently working on a doctorate at SMU, focused on breaking barriers for students of color to gain more access to college and career opportunities. So the way I got here, I know it's kind of verbose. I was originally a corporate banker, but it was an unfulfilling career, and I wanted to really have something that had purpose. So decided to get into education, and that was about 10 years ago. And so super excited to be the dean at a school serving students that are very similar to the students that I grew up with in El Paso. So I'll pass it on to Falone.
Thanks. Before we go to Falone, do you play the guitar, or is that just a prop?
I do play guitar, yeah. On the other side of this office, I have my amps set up and recording material. So yeah, this is actually this is our guest book for our wedding. So instead of signing a guest book, people signed a guitar. So yeah, keep it close to me. So yeah.
Oh, maybe you can play us out tonight, and Falone, you can sing.
Well, I definitely can't sing, but I happen to be I say I'm a C+ bass player, but I don't have my bass with me. So you got to roll solo if we go that direction, Francisco.
Yeah,
but
bring the band together. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to also say I appreciate the welcome, and I'm really glad to be here. So again, I'm Dean of Undergraduate Admission and Outreach at California Lutheran University. I've been in the enrollment management, admission, financial aid field for 18, 19 years. I started my career at the University of Laverne, which is in Southern California, happens to also be a Hispanic serving institution, though I don't know that we had that distinction when I was there. And the short of it, I actually fell into the profession. A lot of people who do what we do for a living were like admission interns, tour guides. I was neither. A guy who I played football with, I was a college football player, worked in the admission office. And after I graduated, he thought I would be good for the office. They had a position open, and I took it, and it was great. I really enjoyed working with the demographic and population. We even back then served a number of first generation college students and low income, and just giving them access to a private institution in Southern California was really fulfilling. However, after a few years, I left the profession because that was not what I intended on doing. At the time, I was working in the media. I worked for radio stations, record labels when that was still a thing. And so I left for a few years, ultimately landing at the LA Times, where I was an account executive for a few years. That was great, good money, but it wasn't personally gratifying or fulfilling, similar to what Francisco was saying. And so after a few years of doing that, I was fortunate enough to re-enter the field, and I was hired at Harvey Mudd College in Claremont, California, and kind of the rest is history from there. You know, I had stops. I was been at Harvey Mudd College. I've served as director of admission at Reed College up in Portland, Oregon. And then a few years ago, we came back down. I was at Pepperdine University, Whittier College, and now Cal Lutheran. So,
man, can't hold a job.
I know, right?
All great opportunities, and I think just really both your paths really speak to how nonlinear this is, right? And
Sure.
this journey, and this as students are thinking about college and their career and future. So thanks for those intros. I want to share a couple more statistics with the audience, and just about Hispanic students. So you'll see here on the screen, so nearly 9 in 10 Hispanics ages 25 to 29 have at least a high school diploma, and that's up 58% from 1996, and in line with the national average. And when it comes to post-secondary education, Hispanic students with bachelor's degrees have increased 145% from 2005 to 2021. And those with some college has increased 76.5%. So, I mean, I think this just kind of sets the stage for what we're talking about tonight. And maybe, Falone, you can just kind of level set on just letting us kind of starting with, what does the HSI designation mean?
Sure. Well, institutions are awarded the HSI designation. You have to meet qualifications to 25% of the student body has to identify as Hispanic or Latinx in order to get the distinction. And then that allows an institution to apply for it through the U.S. Department of Education. And so once you receive that designation, that opens you up to a number of different opportunities, funding, grants that allow you to support your institution. And one of the misconceptions about Hispanic serving institutions and the funding they receive is that it's only for Hispanic and Latinx students, which, while the underlying mission is always to advance students from that population and background, a lot of the funding and initiatives through being an HI institution is open to all students at your institution. A lot of the grants and programming that we offer, again, while we oftentimes do explicitly say it's looking to improve retention rates and persistence with Hispanic and Latinx students, a lot of our things, we really just throw in historically marginalized students. So students from the Black and African American community, Pacific Islanders, Native students as well, low income. But even some of the other initiatives that we have are open to, again, just all students. And some of the programs that we have are actually in line with the mission of our institution as well. And so it's just gives the universities who have this designation an additional opportunity to serve the students that are at their institutions.
Thanks. And can you say just a little more about what makes an HSI unique? What are some of the kind of identifying factors that really kind of make it stand out?
Sure. And I think it's probably going to vary from institution to institution. Certainly having a critical number of Hispanic and Latinx students, I think it's a start. You throw up the statistics that you have there that just shows that it's the growing population in this country. And so I think many Hispanic serving institutions reflect what the country is getting ready to look like. And I know that's why many institutions are looking to either get that designation or become more diverse so that they're relevant to the Hispanic community. And so that in and of itself, I think, makes us stand out. But beyond that, what I would say is, particularly the institutions that are not just interested in being Hispanic serving, because really to be Hispanic serving, it just has to do with enrolling the students. But many of us are now on this journey to not just be Hispanic enrolling, but be Hispanic serving, meaning that it's not just good enough to have the population and say, look how diverse we are. But at our institution, do our students see themselves in the programming that we offer, in the art that we have up there? Do they see themselves in the faculty and the staff that are working at the institution? Do they really feel like our institution really is home, and do they really feel like they belong? And so many of us look to be intentional in making sure that those students feel like they have a home there, and we're not just, again, patting ourselves on the back for having the statistics, but we actually are celebrating everything that comes with our Hispanic and Latinx students, and the things that they bring, and the culture and the uniqueness that they bring to our campus communities. Are we really embracing that? And so I find that the institutions that are intentional, I suspect that the students, whether they identify as Hispanic or not, they are struck by the fact that we are a place that looks to, we recognize and we see people for their individuality and what they bring to our campuses.
I really appreciate that distinction and the kind of focus on the student experience rather than just the enrollment side of things, and the number of just kind of 25%, right? It's not just a number, it's the experience. And Francisco, can you talk a little bit about, why a student should consider an HSI?
Yeah, so great question. I think, HSIs first create a very supportive, affirming, inclusive environment for the multiplicity of Hispanic students. And a lot of these schools understand the very nuanced challenges faced by Hispanic community, because it's not this monolith of the Hispanic identity. So they're able to, a lot of institutions are able to implement culturally relevant programs, resources, supportive services. And one thing that comes to mind is one particular program that happens really, it's just a beautiful program. It happens at Texas A&M Commerce. It's called the LAMP program, Latino American Mentorship Program. And it's amazing because they're able to increase the graduation rate within the Hispanic population, but they have a really amazing targeted programs for Hispanic students. Some other advantages, I think, that campus experience is really important, that student experience. Speaking on personal experience, having attended two HSIs, I can think back on the memories that I had with different culturally relevant celebrations that happened. It was really affirming, being away from home. So, I really appreciated that. They definitely attract diverse student bodies. They definitely celebrate the different cultures, as I mentioned, the multiplicity of Hispanic identities. So those are a couple of those factors.
So, Falone, do you want to just kind of maybe share your thoughts on why a student might consider a HSI?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll start by maybe kind of hopefully it's not too much of a cop-out answer, but, many of these institutions are just great institutions in general. So I don't know that, just kind of from the macro level, you choose these institutions on their own merit. And, again, just thinking about the Hispanic serving, especially here in California, for example, again, the demographics of our state in California, I mean, most of the institutions at some point are likely going to be, by the statistics, eligible to be Hispanic serving. So again, as Francisco was starting to say, I don't know that in and of itself is enough to choose an institution, but going beyond that, okay, like what are they doing with that funding, or how are they celebrating that diversity? And so, I'd say, you're looking at schools that are putting that funding that they receive to use and to the betterment of the students? What kind of supports are they offering because of that? And, again, I can just use, if I can use Cal Lutheran as an example, a number of our initiatives are there to, support students through mentorship, giving them additional research opportunities over the summer, connecting them with different organizations and companies that we have in our area, getting them prepared for jobs after they leave and they graduate from here, making sure they're positioned for that. And so again, we're using these funds to make sure that the experience that they have while they're here is going to be enriched even more. And so we're investing in our students in that way. And so, so again, like, a lot of schools will have these kinds of opportunities in general, but, these HSI grants that we receive allow us to do a little bit more extra. And again, some of that is targeted towards students who have the backgrounds that the grants are written for.
Thanks. And Francisco, as you work with students, there's a question that came in the pre-registration about, what's the best way for students to get information on how students serve, or how colleges serve Hispanic students? Who should they go to? Where should they find that information? And what kinds of information should they be asking about?
What a great question. It's something that, as a warrior of college access for a lot of Hispanic students, I'm on the front lines providing the information. Gathering information on colleges is a critical piece of that journey. And I think the first line, firstly, I think visiting college websites, that's the first step. So I definitely urge students to visit those college websites, and they can search for student life, the Hispanic student life, or Hispanic student services, Hispanic support programs. So I think they can lead you in the right direction. They often provide some really, really cool details of programs. There's career counseling, academic support. So you can see all the different services that are offered for specifically for Hispanic students. I think what's also really cool when they visit the websites or in person, starting to pick up in junior year, I think that's when parents and families should really start to ramp up their college search and their research. Again, that can happen earlier than that, but I think junior year is when it really ramps up. I really urge families to go on either in-person or virtual campus tours, a lot of information sessions that are held, whether at their school or indirectly or directly with admission representatives. I think that's a really important piece. Also, social media is really important to tap into those social media platforms, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, for checking up on those institutions to see what type of Hispanic supports they offer. And I think the biggest thing, another really huge factor is or a component is reaching out to current students and alumni. That's something that I do as a male Hispanic educator. I definitely connect through social media, through different support groups, as I try to navigate a space that there's not a lot of Hispanic male administrators. So I think that the power of networking can't be overstated. So again, those are a couple options. Also, community-based organizations, that's important, and nonprofits to provide additional information and resources to help navigate the college and career access forum.
Falone, can you talk about some other kind of common misconceptions? You mentioned that misconception that the federal funding is just kind of focused on Hispanic students, but any other things that you kind of run into on a regular basis, miss?
Yeah, in all honesty, that tends to be the major one, because again, and you may get some comments here like, okay, why are you just doing this and only benefiting one particular population of students? And as I shared, for the majority of the initiatives we have, that's definitely not true. And we actually see it in practice. A number of our students who don't identify as Hispanic or Latinx take advantage of these grants and programs that we have here. And so that tends to be, when people just hear it and they don't do their own research, and whatever stigma that may carry, that's the thing that we have to educate our student population on. But at the same time, I will say, while we want to make sure we let folks know that these grants are open to everyone, we don't want to lose. This really is designed to improve the statistics that we see with respect to retention, persistence, where they're at in certain job forces in STEM for the Hispanic and Latinx community. So we're I don't want to say unapologetic about that, but we want to make sure that we're not trying to bury that either, because this is for our students who identify as Hispanic or Latinx, and we want them to take advantage of this as well. But it's not an exclusive. The programs and the funding is not exclusive.
Not segmented, right?
Yeah.
No, that's really helpful. And I think sometimes some of the myths that we've kind of been exposed to are this myth that HSIs only serve students from low-income families, right, or that HSIs have lower academic standards than other institutions, and none of those are accurate, right?
No, absolutely not. And I'd add that, especially here in California, the perception that if I can be a little crass, that brown means low income. Absolutely not true. Again, especially here in Southern California, while we know, if you look at the population of students who fall into like the low income first gen, certainly there is a percentage of Hispanic and Latinx students that make that up. But here in California, and especially Southern California, in terms of socioeconomic status, we have plenty of middle income and upper income Latinx and Hispanic families that come to our institution and institutions around Southern California, and they benefit from these opportunities as well, because actually, when you look at certain data on statistics with respect to ethnicity and race, regardless of income level, you'll see that certain populations are still behind, whether they come from a high income or low income background. And so, I'm not one that likes to play the quote unquote race card, but the statistics are the statistics, and so that's why initiatives like this benefit that. And so it's definitely no stigmas, or there shouldn't be any stigmas with that. But to your point, there's not just one type of student or one type of institution. And as I mentioned before, especially here in California, just looking at the demographics and where the population's going, it may be the case where more of these Hispanic serving institutions are not part of like the selective school group. But the way things are going, just by demographics alone, that's likely going to change, again, at least here in Southern California.
Thanks. Francisco, there's a question that came in the chat or in the Q&A about resources or tips to support undocumented students on the college application process. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so thank you so much for asking this question. This is something that's really important, very, very close to my heart. I think first, before any information, it's important to note that a lot of laws, policies, regulations, they do differ vastly from institution and also from state to state. So it's important to keep up to date on a lot of the information that can be provided through the counseling department at families' high schools or through community-based organizations. So again, just make sure you're up to date on those policies. Often undocumented students can feel hopeless, but I definitely urge them to explore a lot of the resources that are available for them through nonprofit organizations, CBOs, community-based organizations that specialize in the advocacy and support for those undocumented students. And some of those organizations, top of my head, RAICES is a wonderful organization. Dream.us, something that provides support. The United We Dream website, the National Immigration Law Center are all really great resources that I consistently tell my families when we're working with undocumented students. So I think it's really important to stay, again, up to date with the local policies, have that conversation with the counseling department at their school or through a community-based organization. And it's also important when they're reaching that time where they're applying for schools, and wanting to know if there's additional institutional scholarships or whether local or state scholarships are available. I definitely urge families and students to reach out to their college admission offices directly, whichever college rep they may be communicating with, because they can give them the most up-to-date policies at their school. Because immigration law is in flux, at times it's hard to say what a policy may be in existence today. It may not be in existence tomorrow. So again, I urge them to be in contact with their admission rep from their college or institution directly, because they can provide you the most up-to-date information regarding undocumented policies.
Thanks. Falone, anything to add to that on undocumented students or DACA students?
Yeah, not a ton, other than, as Francisco mentioned, unfortunately, for students who need the support, we often put it on them to have to do the extra work and research. And unfortunately, this is one of those instances where they will have to do a little bit of digging. As Francisco mentioned, in California, we actually do have, something that's equivalent to FAFSA or functions like the FAFSA. It's called the CADA, CADAA, for undocumented students. And many institutions in Southern California will accept that. Unfortunately, that doesn't give them access to federal need-based aid, but that does make them eligible for the California State Grant, which is a grant that's awarded to California high school graduates to attend California schools. But what many institutions like California Lutheran also use the CADA for is to figure out how we can award institutional need-based financial aid. And so that'll produce, just like when you do the FAFSA, it'll produce an EFC, and we can figure out financial need and then try to award the students additional need-based funding in addition to whatever other scholarships they may bring to them. And then as Francisco said, different institutions will try to offer, scholarships for undocumented students. And again, you just kind of have to do your research, and also, this is where I will put a plug in for, schools like Uplift in Texas and, other organizations, really work with, whatever support you can get counselors, because they have relationships with institutions and schools. They know the places that are going to be supportive of, whatever your situation may be, like being undocumented or any other situation. They're the experts and they have the relationships with us. So as much as you can, really plug in, especially if your high school doesn't have a strong counseling or guidance program. Try to find some of these organizations locally to get plugged in with, so that they can make sure you don't miss out on any of these resources that may be available to you.
That's great advice. And we've put a link to some resources in the chat here for funding. And also there's a link to a list of HSIs in each state there. So for folks who want to check that out. And Francisco, as students approach kind of looking and researching at colleges, what kind of career readiness programs should they be looking for when they look at colleges in general, but maybe HSIs if they're a student who's Hispanic?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. Thank you. I think, with this ever-changing global marketplace, I think we're training kids for jobs that don't exist, and for careers that haven't been invented yet. So I've seen a change within the last few years. It's lately I've been seeing a lot of entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurship is very, very appealing to a lot of students that they want to be their own boss. They want to open up their own business. So I think career readiness and some of the tools and some of the transferable skills would be within financial literacy, would be into how to reinvest, capital, because going to college is, data has shown that it's the best way for social mobility. So, and we want to make sure that we address that generational wealth gap, which is, the disparity is huge.
Great thoughts. And I will say that the nonprofit Third Way has their economic mobility index. You spoke about kind of mobility in the community, and HSIs score really well in general on the Third Way economic mobility index. So that's something folks should check out as they search for schools. Falone, I want to turn back to you and just kind of more generally, as students are thinking about the idea of belonging, what are some of the things they should be thinking about as they search for schools, and even for high school seniors as they prepare to head off to school, right? Head off to college if they're going to college. What kind of things should they be thinking about around belonging?
Man, that's there's so much to think about there. I definitely, I'll start by maybe going in the other direction. I always challenge students to use college as a time to maybe get out of their comfort zone and, experience, communities and life that's different than what you have back home. And that'll certainly prepare you for the real world, because we do live in a more global, diverse society, where things are just a lot more open now and then. And so the less of a homogenized network that you have, I think you'll benefit in the longer run. But at the same time, you do want to be at a place where you're going to feel like you're not like you just like you belong, for lack of a better sense, or that you're not like an alien from another planet, right? And so whether that's going to a place or attending an institution where you see that there are students who look like you, or you know you're going to a place where the university or college has a track record of supporting students from whatever background and identity that you identify with, and that can be in a number of ways. The topic that we're speaking here, we're kind of going race and ethnicity heavy, thinking about Hispanic serving institutions and all of that. But I'd also say, what are your attitudes towards things like religious freedom, your own like sexual identity, political leanings, like all of these things. Most colleges and institutions try to be pretty transparent about like what type of community and student body they have. And, great way, certainly if you get to visit a campus, you'll get a good feel for that. But so many of us now are putting all kinds of content about what our institutions are like, on social media channels, YouTube, and all of that. And, it's really just trying to find a place where you're going to be comfortable, because the reality is, certainly going to college or university is about the academic and in-class experience, right? Because you're there to get a degree that'll lead to your next steps, whether it be career, graduate school. But those of us who, especially if you're going away to college and you're going somewhere where you're going to have to live on campus and be in the community, so much of your experience is going to be outside of the classroom. So even if they have your selected major, or you think they have an awesome professor that you're going to get to learn from, I mean, just as important is what's it going to be like when you are back at the residence halls, or where you're in the dining hall, or where you're working in lab groups and interacting with people, study groups in the library. All of that is important. And so you just want to make sure you're going to be in an environment. I guess you want to make sure you're at a place where the community is going to see you for who you are and your individuality, and not make you feel like you don't belong there. Everyone, whatever campus in college, university that you attend, you should feel like that campus is yours, because it is. You're a student there and you're part of that community.
It's a great message, and I think a lot of that comes right in line with what a school's mission is, right?
Mhm.
And being an HSI is just part of that mission for some schools, and for some schools it's an intentional part of their mission, and other schools it's more just a matter of the students they're enrolling, right? Um,
Absolutely.
but having those conversations on the front end as you're looking at schools and exploring what a school's mission is, and are they living that mission, right?
Yep.
And are you going to belong? Is that going to resonate with you and who you are and what you want for that experience? So it's back to
Mhm.
that. It's back to the experience piece of what you started with
Yep.
for students. I'm so grateful for both of you taking some time tonight to share your wisdom and to answer questions. And thank you for all you do. And thank you for those of you who are watching and um, exploring Hispanic serving institutions with us. And have a great night.